Hello, welcome back to Only Pistols. Today we're having a look at an Gamo centre. This is a 177 spring-powered underlever operated target pistol. Let's start by looking at the markings on it. On this side of the cylinder, calibre 4.5177, made in Spain, the prefix and the serial number. And on top of the cylinder, Gamo logo and Gamo for the producer. And that's it for markings on it. The rear sight is marked for windage and is operated for windage and elevation, marked as well. So you've got reference numbers on it. It doesn't tell you which way to move it, but it is marked, and both are the same. The rear sight itself is a blade that moves within the rear sight housing, and that's plastic with a metal blade, and it quite simply is click adjustable, so no tools required. It's got references on it so you can see where the gap is, but that moves within the plastic housing itself. So a very good sight picture for a budget setup. Slightly odd thing about this is that the rear sight elevation is controlled by this knob, and what happens there is you've got a plastic tube that comes out of the bottom of the rear sight down through the rear piston cap to the threaded screw at the bottom, and so that quite simply is moving against these two springs. And it's probably the weakest point on this pistol. You'll quite often find these with missing rear sights, because as I said, that's just a piece of plastic tubing with a threaded section up through, so not a lot of strength there. Front sight held on this plastic muzzle cap, which also doubles up as the retainer for the underlever. The front sight itself is a squared off post, and you can adjust that by undoing that screw there to move that post up and down. So a really good front sight. The front sight hood is removable, so if you wanted to be ISSF compliant, you just whip that off and that would give you a perfectly compliant pistol. Construction: plastic front cap, as I said, rifled steel barrel, and then steel for the main cylinder, rolled steel underlever for the cocking lever, and then the frame itself is cast aluminium, and the grip extension is also cast aluminium. The cylinder is actually in two pieces. So what you've got is the main compression cylinder, which has got the piston in it, and that's joined there, and you can just make out that join, and that's screwed in. And then you've got the front piece, which has the barrel located into it. Finish on all of it is bright blued steel for the barrel and cylinder and the underlever, and then a crackle finish, paint finish on the aluminium parts. Trigger is two-stage adjustable, and it's a folded steel part, so the trigger shoe is just quite a nice feel to it actually. It comes to the finger really quite nicely. So two-stage and adjustable. This screw here is the one that you adjust to adjust the trigger weight, and that is basically adjusting the sear engagement. So it's a very fine line between not holding the pistol and being too sensitive or very heavy. So I ended up having to put some Loctite on that because I found it just kept backing off. The rear screw is meant to be there to set and hold the trigger, but I find it doesn't really kind of do enough to hold that in place. Other thing that's worth then noticing is the rear grip. So plastic, one piece, quite a profile of its time, nicely stippled, quite a nice grip, imitation wood effect, and probably quite a bit better than you'd think so. So the size of it is pretty ideal. It's not too big, not too small, and one of its party pieces is that this is actually an adjustable grip, so you can adjust the angle of the grip. To do that, flat-headed screwdriver, and you just put that up through there just to locate the end of the, and then there's undo that screw, and then just slacken off the top screw on the grip, and that allows the grip to move. So you can go from that, which is quite an upright grip, right forward to that, which is quite a drop wrist grip. And how that works is you've got the lower extension with that screw going through, which is just a pointed screw, and in the bottom of the frame extension you've got a set of plastic teeth set into it, and quite simply pick the location you want it to be, and that's just gently at the end of the screw up, and just screw that in until it picks up the jaws. I don't like it that far, we'll go back a bit. And you just screw that in until it picks up the jaws, and that then just sets that screw into the jaw, which sets your grip angle. And then you just tighten that screw back up, and that's it. And you've set your grip angle. So quite a nice feature on what is otherwise a budget pistol. So grip set. So what else about it? Well, it's an underlever. So let's work out see how it works. So basically pull the underlever down out of its holding, and you've just got a ball bearing detent on the end, and you quite simply just pull that down until it latches in place. It has got a lock, so once that's cocked, the only way of releasing that is to actually load it and fire the pistol. So you turn the loading lever, cocking lever up, and then to load it, pull out this plastic pellet carrier, and that's just hinged from that screw in the front of the action there. Take a pellet, drop it in place, and you need to make sure you've got a pellet with sufficient skirt size to stop that dropping through. Swing it over, take up the first stage on the trigger, and it fires. So spring, so you've got quite a jump. With that, now you can see it, but basically in that front section you've got an O-ring that sits in the front, and you've got another O-ring that sits in the end of the compression cylinder. So that's what just makes the seal when you swing that loading gate in. So it's got quite a decent finish to it, so it's pretty airtight. So again, pull that down, and that's not a bad weight to it. It's not overly heavy considering it's quite short. Drop the pellet in, close it over, take it up, and fires. So, is it accurate? Well, surprisingly, for quite such a budget pistol, yes it is. Get it the right way around so you can see it. So that was my first card. Yeah, wasn't happy having that one in the right, so I adjusted the sights a bit and had another go. And yeah, pretty much the same group size to be honest, but now a bit more respectable. So yeah, not a laser beam, but perfectly acceptable for a budget pistol. That's at 10 meters. So yes, it's pretty accurate. Production dates. Well, Gamo started making pistols or air guns in 1959, and the Gamo Centre, or the El Gamo Centre, is 1973 through to the present day. You can still buy these new or versions very close to it. El Gamo, they dropped the L part in 1990 and now become the much more recognised Gamo air pistols. So yeah, a long history of making these budget air pistols, and they're very good. So other bits about this, it's very well made. It's nice, it's solid, but then there is just the one other bit which, having owned it for a little while, I kind of picked up on, and that is it's good, well constructed. You know, that cylinder joint there is very good, but you put a straight edge on the top of the cylinder, and there's no problem there. The gap's very nice, but then you come to the barrel. So if you can see there, the straight edge on top of it, and you've got, you know, a couple of mil, and then you come further along, and you can see that barrel drops quite a lot, visibly. And I had a look, and it's purely and simply quality control. It's how this was drilled to allow the barrel into this part of the cylinder. It hasn't been dropped, it's not bent. Good luck bending that. That's a pretty heavy, decent piece of steel there. There's no way of really kind of altering that. That does go all the way through to the front there. That's just quite simply quality control on machining. It just isn't straight. Fortunately, there's enough give in the sights to be able to overcome it. But yeah, such a basic thing on what is otherwise a really, really useful pistol. I first came across these when I was doing Pony Club, and they were quite a lot of them out there because they are a very useful pistol. So that aside, yeah, it's a really nicely made, useful pistol. It's got some really nice features, adjustable trigger, the sights are really good, decent sight radius, and they're adjustable front and rear. The adjustment on the grip, again, just also is really kind of quality, thought out bits and pieces. And the fact that they're still making it, 1973 right through to the current day, and it's still being made. So there you go, a budget target spring pistol. Really quite accurate, very good fun to shoot. If you get a chance to, they're still out there, there's plenty of them were made, and just look for one that's got its rear sight in one piece. As I said, that's probably the weakest part to it. Not unsortable, I think you can still get spares for it, but just a bit to kind of have a look at. So if you've liked this, then please like, share, subscribe, hit all the YouTubey bits, and otherwise I'll see you again soon with another pistol. Thanks very much. Bye.